Oh, from Southern Ontario, it's June 21st or 2nd or something. So a lot of people think that the World Economic Forum has no political control, or they want to think they don't. They want to think it's a benign think tank. Let's look at it. First, we're going to start with the IDU, the International Democracy Union, because the World Economic Forum's Behavioral Science Department, through their Behavioral Insight teams, the BIT nudge units, have sown the fear of the IDU into the public's mind. So the IDU, their annual operating budget wouldn't cover the cost of the brandy and the morning coffee at the Davos meeting. They don't have a 3-year Young Global Leaders program cranking out over 100 active status WEF members annually, or anything similar to that. While the IDU's biannual meetings might have an attendance barely broaching 100 some years, Davos is pushing 4,000, and they've cranked out over 4,500 active status WEF members, or I should say Young Global Leaders program graduates. The IDU's stated intent is the promotion of conservative political ideology. They appear to be what the WEF wants us to believe they are, a mere think tank. That said, the IDU are not totally transparent, and they, after all, are politicians. But if numbers and money are representative of power and control, and they of course are, there's little doubt that the IDU is a nothing burger compared to the WEF's power and control. Before we look at the WEF's agendas, let's look at what their control structure, the administration, consists of. The foundation board, the head table where policies, agendas, and the implementation of are set out. Highly secretive. How often and where they meet is not disclosed. Some, but not all, members of the foundation board, past and present, are known. Mark Carney, George Soros, Bill Gates, Antonio Guterres, head of the UN, Ajay Banga, head of the World Bank. Oddly enough, Yo-Yo Ma, the cellist, remember Kramer on Seinfeld? Yo-Yo Ma. Anyways, I don't know what Yo-Yo's doing there, but again, guys like Mark Carney, George Soros, Bill Gates, Antonio Guterres, and Ajay Banga. Yeah, that's the short list, the recognizable names. Now, we have the Board of Trustees. It meets 4 times annually, where they are tasked with the implementation of the Foundation Board's agendas. Here we see the likes of Canada's Chrystia Freeland and Ursula von der Leyen, head of the EU member nations, who through the EU Commission in Brussels yields considerable political power over the member nations' own sovereign political control, migration, economics, trade, etc. Now, we come to some of the lettered outfits. NATO. The current head of NATO, Mark Rutte, is an active status WEF member. He was a classmate of Justin Trudeau's from the Young Global Leaders program, class of 2005. Former Prime Minister of the Netherlands. The UN, the United Nations, the Secretary General, the aforementioned Antonio Guterres. He was 10 years on the Foundation Board and may still currently be there. And Ajay Banga, head of the World Bank, again, Foundation Board, the head of the IMF. The WHO, the World Health Organization, is almost exclusively WEF members. Canada's own not beloved Dr. Tam, class of 2016 Young Global Leaders. For example, I think the only guy at the WHO who isn't a WEF member is the doorman, maybe the parkade attendant. Speaking of Canada, under Trudeau, the Liberal Party cabinet ministers were 75% WEF members, Young Global Leaders program graduates. Needless to say, little has changed under Klaus Carney. He shuffled a few of them around. And the Wef's penetration into positions of power in Canada run well past the Liberal Party itself. Our Governor General, Mary Simon, Jenny Karednan, if I'm pronouncing her last name properly, recently placed as head of our armed forces. She's a Young Global Leaders Program graduate from 2019. Brenda Lucky, former commissioner of the RCMP during 2022 and all those goings on. Wef. Justice Marie-Josée Hogue. She headed the Foreign Interference Inquiry, where she said Trudeau's hair looks good. Class of 2020. So much for the program being young global leaders. The Prime Minister of BC, Manitoba, Nova Scotia, and the Yukon, and the list goes on, down to mayoral levels. Olivia Chow, Mayor of Toronto. Now, in the Western countries, it's a shorter list of national leaders who aren't WEF members than those who are. Argentina, the US, Italy, Hungary. Well, if they're conservative, they're not WEF members. The Netherlands, Romania, and Poland could go either way at the moment. The big boys firmly in the group of the WEF currently and for quite some time: France, Germany, and the UK. Although Starmer's in trouble in the polls in the Supreme Court in the UK. It's interesting to see what develops there. I could go further into the EU politics, but with Ursula von der Leyen from the Foundation Board heading the EU Commission, those countries are kind of handcuffed by the WEF as it is. So I'm going to leave the video here. We didn't even get into the WEF's agendas, which are clearly stated. That's a subject for another video, I suppose. But if anyone says to you the WEF has no political power, how can they not?